Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I'm going live about now. Today's stream, I kind of hoped I would be doing. I'll admit it. I kind of actually banked on it, but I still had no idea that it will be, well, what I hope it will be. Today, we're talking about some huge Apple announcements today. I already see some familiar faces in the live chat. Plasma Void asking, did Mark really put polishing cloth into the stream title as well? Not only that, but I only added the fire emoji once I saw that the polishing cloth was not just updated, but it was also half the price. So the fact that we are living under inflation, absolutely disproven by Apple today, ladies and gentlemen. We have Rosa saying hello. We have Riley calling me late tech. By the way, guys, the reason why I'm a little bit late, mind you, 4 minutes, I have been much later. Which isn't a great excuse, to be honest. As you guys know, I'm a dermatologist. I was on my way home and I was like actually finishing up early today. And I was like, oh yeah, great. No, I can focus on this. And then on my way to home, I'll find an old man lying on the street, potentially with a broken arm and fractured ribs and everything. And I checked him up, called the ambulance, and waited with him until it was there. Thankfully, I took an early day today, or otherwise, God knows when I would have been here. But today, ladies and gentlemen, after all the pre-intro rambling, after me finally kind of getting my senses together, today, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about some huge stuff in the world of Apple and consumer tech. We are talking about Apple introducing the new M6 and M5 Ultra processors and using them to power a new Mac Mini. Yes, unfortunately, one with yet another price hike versus the M4 version, and a new Mac Studio powered now by M5 Max and M5 Ultra. This is, except for the pricing, pretty much best case scenario because we knew that M6 Pro and M6 Max are not happening. We had feared that M5 Ultra might take us until the very end of this year. Thankfully, that's not happening. We are getting M5 Ultra now, or at least a month from now. We are going to get into all the details as we go through all of this. And it's going to take a little bit closer to the end of the year again before we get the 512 gigabyte M5 Ultra. But hey, at the very least, we aren't talking about like a November, December announcement. We aren't talking about something slipping into spring or something like that. And with M6, we are basically getting everything in the next month, right? I mean, sure, there's going to be an M6 MacBook Pro, a 14-inch version, but we are basically know almost everything we need to know about the M6 already by the end of August. So M7, I guess, can come along because, as Mark Gurman said, the M7 is going to happen in the first half of next year. So the turnaround is going to be much faster than before. And M7 is going to get M7 Max and M7 Ultra. So by the end of next year, we should have a full lineup ready. Or early 2028 is, I guess, when we would get the M5 Ultra, the M7 Ultra, but M7 Pro and M7 Max would be happening in the second half of next year. So a lot of smaller announcements, but once you combine them, it's Apple's most powerful chip ever. It's Apple's first 2-nanometer chip ever. And they're happening simultaneously, and they're expanding Apple's Mac lineup. Riley saying, all the more reason to make an A-chip Mac in a thing. Yeah, I guess Apple now opens themselves up to make a Mac Neo. Now, I don't think if A20 Pro would be a great fit for that yet, but it really depends on I/O. But then again, the MacBook Neo kind of proves that Apple is willing to play a little bit loosey-goosey with how good they make their I/O. Guys, before I get fully started, cheers. And before I fully transition into the topics of today, I highly encourage you guys to do the YouTube jazz, as we call it around here, which is subscribing to the channel if you're enjoying the content, like the video, share it out with anybody who think might enjoy it. It helps tremendously in the algorithm. Of course, comment. You guys see I love interacting with a lively live stream, getting your agreements, your disagreements and stuff like that. Just seeing what you are thinking. I see we have plenty of people watching right now. So if you can help the stream out, that would mean the world to me. And of course, you can become a supporter right here on YouTube. Or on Patreon. Shout out to the Mark Tech Pro. Well, shout out to all the members: Denise, KSB Wonders, Angelica, Steve, Max, Maximus, Jonathan, and Angelica. You guys know the drill. If I forgot somebody or mentioned somebody twice, that's because I'm very tired. So cheers. Brent Goodale saying, cheers, just pre-ordered Mac Studio with M5 Max chip. Damn, nice. At the current prices, that's quite a flex, brand. I sense a potential super chat candidate. I don't know. That was a bad Palpatine voice. I apologize for that. JRLNESX, I really have no idea how to pronounce your name, bro. Just ordered M5 Mac Studio. Guys, have you all been waiting for the Mac Studio? Is that because the M3 Ultra was so long in the tooth, right? Like, we'd never got an M4 Ultra. So is that why so many people wanted really the M5 Ultra? For one, it's way faster for AI. I mean, we're going to get through all the benchmarks. But I can understand that. And if you're, by the way, if you're ordering something, also let me know what you think. Jesus Christ, what you think, what you're upgrading from, right? So tell me what the value proposition was for you. Brent, coming from a fully loaded 2014 iMac. Oh, so you have a proper like multi-generational update, still coming from Intel technology. Wow, that's an impressive jump. Good on you for holding out. JR Lens X, 64 gigabytes for photo and video editing. That's quite a nice setup for photo and video editing. I guess that probably means you can pay some of it with taxes and stuff like that, tax deduction. I hope for you, but not that I am interfering with your finances. It's just these are pretty expensive machines now, though they are good value, one has to be said, versus a lot of like NVIDIA hardware and everything. These are really good. Especially also considering the efficiency, mind you. But without further ado, you guys see I like getting distracted by the live chat. If you make it a super chat, the chance for me to get distracted is even higher. Just as a warning and as a promise. But let's get started into the actual chip. Riley saying, I'm taking my iPad mini 7 and iPhone 16 PM all the way to after the AI crash. That's probably not a bad idea too, given that we are probably like, what, 2 weeks away from iPhone 18 Pro and price increases? Okay. Apple introduces M6 and M5 Ultra for a big leap in performance and AI compute. If you are here and like Riley are not really into AI, prepare for this word to come up a lot, but it is very important. Don't forget, Apple uses AI now for Siri AI, right? Apple is using it for technologies like Metal FX and upscaling at least, right? So there is going to, the people are running local LLMs on their devices. So there is quite a lot that's coming together. Photo and video editing tools include AI to do stuff like image fill and reconstruction for high quality. So AI, yes, AI is very much a throwaway term in many ways. It gets thrown around a lot, but in this case, I would actually wager that it is quite justified to focus on much. Riley, you can count how often I say AI. If you want to, you can even do a drinking game. I'm not drinking anything but Coke. This stream is not sponsored, but I'm a big fan. Okay. M6, Apple's first 2nm chip. So this is very important. Right off the get-go, we already have Apple's first 2nm chip. It's going to be interesting if this actually ends up launching before the A20 Pro, because this is coming out at the end of next month, at the end of September. So that could actually open up the iPhone 18 Pro and iPhone Fold, iPhone Ultra, however you want to call it, iPhone Ultra Pro XL Fold, if you're going to go by Google's branding, should add some numbers as well. But now we do have 2nm. Now, one thing that is not happening here, we are not seeing a switch to a technology like LPDDR6. at least not very likely. I'll give some exact explanations on it. And Apple does not specifically mention any kind of memory bonding changes, like, for example, the inclusion of WMCM memory packaging, which is what's rumored for the A20 Pro. So usually it's very easy to extrapolate and say, oh, this is the power of the M4. So, for example, when the M4 Tandem OLED iPad Pro came out, and based on that, we were really very easily we could tell and predict the performance of the A18 Pro chip that came out a few months later. This, I would wager there's going to be bigger differences between M6 and A20 Pro, particularly when it comes to packaging, than usual. But I would still expect a lot of things to stay largely in line. Also, by the way, guys, we have so many of you guys here. Please leave a like. You will also find in the description of this channel a link to my Discord. And one thing that I hope will prove to you guys that I'm not full of shit, which is that the actual configuration for the where does it say? There it is. The actual configuration for the M6 chip with 2 super cores, 4 performance, and 6 efficiency cores, I actually predicted it exactly in early June, saying, I don't know why, but I cannot shake the feeling that M6 is going to have a weirder CPU configuration. Maybe something like 2 super cores, 4 performance cores, and 6 E-cores. It would allow them to go to 12 cores without actually making the die portion much or any bigger. Mind you, even if they added more transistors, 2 nanometers more transistor dense, so more logic dense, but also more transistor dense in the sense of cache. So they could offer you the same amount of cache on a smaller die or slightly increase the amount of cache on the same size die. I would wager that the M6 is very much in line size-wise with the M5. The only thing that stands out to me is the dual neural engine. We'll get to that a little bit later. But that is the only thing that I believe could make the M6 substantially larger than the M5. It would also allow Apple to offer CPU-bint M-series chips. Now, this is something that hasn't happened yet, but I do predict will happen on, for example, the MacBook Air in a more substantial form. On the Mac for the first time without seeming cheap, which if you think about the MacBook Air right now, that one, for example, is GPU-bint. So, guys, if you want to join my Discord to have these kinds of quality predictions 2 months in advance, that's open to you, of course. I also, by the way, guys, if you are watching live, there is one thing that I'm not yet fully clear on, and I would like to have your inputs. And that is, some people are saying, and this is based on 9to5Mac and some people I've seen commenting on Twitter, some high-profile people, saying that the M6 can process FP8, so that's a bit rate, natively on hardware, whereas M5 handles FP8 through software because it natively handles FP16. FP8 is an 8-bit format designed to make AI workloads faster and more memory efficient. So we can very easily get that M5 Pro, M5 Max, M5 Ultra do not get this change because we know that the A19 and the M5 generation have not introduced it thus far. I doubt Apple is doing some mid-generation refresh of those chips. But the M6, by some estimates, is supporting FP8. So let me know if you have any corroborating facts on that or something that contradicts it. It's not on Apple's website. So this is why I'm a little bit skeptical about it. And also some of Apple's performance numbers that they're saying for AI tasks, unfortunately, they do not quite suggest that to me, but we'll get through that. All-Star Gaming YT, I don't understand the new CPU names. Well, I mean, it's very easy in a way. First, if you're talking about the M6 is a next version of the M5. It's based on a newer node. It has new architectures, especially seemingly on the GPU would be my prediction. But it's the only M6 generation chip. It's the only 2 nanometer chip here. M5, M5 Pro, M5 Max, M5 Ultra, they're all in the same generation architecturally. They all use N3P 3-nanometer processors. And they are architecturally behind DM6, but they might still deliver more performance in DM6 and more I/O because these chips are bigger. They have more PCIe lanes. They have more wattage that's being guided to them. They literally have more transistors. They have more cache. They have support for larger memory capacities and more memory bandwidth. Now, if you are talking about the cores, this one is now actually pretty easy to explain. The only problem with it is if you look at generations older than DM5, those names become a little bit incomparable. So when we are looking, and we can go back to my own prediction here, right? So the 2 super cores are the fastest cores that Apple makes. They are the largest cores that Apple makes. They have the largest L1, L2 cache levels. Then come performance cores. Performance cores actually, they are pretty similar to the super cores, but because of multi-threaded tasks and thermal limitations, Apple cannot just give you 6 super cores without completely overheating the device in most cases, especially on something like the MacBook Air. It was also make the chip extremely expensive and much larger. We know that because where does Apple give you 6 super cores? They give you that on the M5 Max. So what they do instead is they offer you extra cores that don't clock quite as high, but they have very similar instructions per clock. They have a little bit less cache, so they are smaller overall. And by a little less, it can literally be half. But they will deliver roughly 80% of the performance of the super cores. And don't forget, because multi-threaded tasks will not allow you to run all these cores at their max frequencies anyway. And for single-threaded tasks or dual-threaded tasks, you will just put them on the super cores. And for background tasks, you're just going to put them on the super efficient E cores. That allows you for the P cores to just be the cores that always work at the frequency they're kind of designed to work best at, which is under the super cores, but definitively above the E cores. The E cores are the smallest cores. They're a core cluster. They're designed to handle background tasks like networking, incoming notifications, sometimes video playback, though a lot of that will, of course, be handled also by the media engine and stuff like that. Music playback, all those kinds of things that don't need highest performance, that don't need the highest amount of cache. And for multi-threaded tasks, again, since these 6 cores already produce plenty of heat and use up plenty of power, the amount of extra cores that you could realistically power at that moment becomes very small. So at that point, it just becomes more sensible to use 6 E cores. Yeah. The only reason why it's a hard comparison to before is because previously Apple used to have only P and E cores, but technically the previous P cores were more like old gen super cores, because technically Apple did not have a mid core before that. Now it's that mid core is called performance. That's because other companies are calling their core stuff like Prime cores and Pro and Ultra, right? And that's why Apple needed to still give it a premium name, even though it's not quite as premium of a core. Okay, let's continue actually with the actual news of the day. Apple today debuted M6. Oh, wait, did I even finish? No. The M6 features a larger, more powerful 12-core CPU, a 12-core GPU, so that's also something that I've predicted, but that's something that has been predicted for a while. I'll not actually just praise myself nonstop. Don't worry, guys. I'm not that self-absorbed, and the only reason why I'm able to make any kind of predictions is because I have an amazing community that feeds me all kinds of information, that make their own predictions. I can evaluate my own vibes based on what they are saying. So yeah. 12-core GPU is definitely nice. This is something where the M series chips have been for a while not as far ahead of the A series chips as one might want. There was a time where, for example, the A series chips had 5 GPU cores. The M series base chips had 10 GPU cores, so double, because they also happen to have double the memory bandwidth and things like that, right? Well, then the A series chips switched to 6 GPU cores, but the M series chips stayed for years on 10 GPU cores. So this is Apple finally correcting that a little bit. Ironically, this might happen in the year where the A20 Pro could become a 7-core GPU, but we'll have to see how that plays out. Dual 16-core neural engine. So this is interesting because architecturally, this to me suggests that this is basically the same neural engine as was on the A19 Pro or the M5 for that matter. But that now, you know the meme? Now there are 2 of them, right? Like the Neimoidians in Star Wars, right? Like, this is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them. With the Jedi, this is pretty much what Apple is pulling off here with the neural engine. So this to me suggests that this was a pretty basic architectural thing for Apple. They just, well, it's not easy to just double it because you need to make sure that it has access to all the bandwidth you need, that you handle cache efficiently and stuff like that, that the CPU knows when to instruct one or both and how to spread out AI tasks across all of these neural engine cores, right? But this is not a brand new neural engine that's like 32 cores, right? Or something like that. It's 2 probably older gen 16-core neural engine. So this is very interesting by Apple. But ironically, this, for example, makes this, from a neural engine perspective, way faster than something than the M5 Pro. Plasma Void, congrats Brent and Gerald, enjoy the new Macs. Yeah, absolutely, guys. I hope everyone watching and who's that interested and buying, that's just amazing. And that goes to show that Apple seems to have some pretty good products on their hand. This is not the biggest stream ever, and we already have 2 people who are buying these new Macs. So that's pretty great, I mean, for Apple at the very least. While M5 Ultra is Apple's first quad-die architecture, that's obviously because the M5 Max was already dual die, and then previous Ultra chips were dual die, but now Apple is combining 2 dual dies, which is 2 M5 Max into 1 M5 Ultra. And it's therefore Apple's most powerful chip ever. Ironically, though, it might, of course, now be equipped with Apple's second most powerful supercores, because that honor will go to the M6 of having the fastest supercore of any Apple device. M6 delivers a revolutionary leap in everyday performance and power efficiency. So I know some people, including some people in my Discord, might not be totally wowed by some of the performance claims for the M6, especially when it comes to the CPU. Now, I myself am extremely interested in the GPU performance. Some of it sounds extremely promising. When it comes to AI, obviously the neural engine by itself, plus the GPU, plus, of course, that unsolved question that I put into the room earlier of whether or not the GPU actually supports native FP8 acceleration, right? So that's all good. Now, Apple does not talk about media engine storage, though they will for the M5 Ultra. Now, that's a doozy. But for the M6, the only thing that I see somewhat being questionable as a big upleap is the CPU. Apple promises the fastest supercore of any Apple product, but, and they promise 20% more multi-threaded performance. What's interesting here is, of course, if we look at it, iPad, Intel Premium, what the fuck are these numbers? Okay, whatever. benchmark charts, Mac benchmark charts. Okay, so the M5. Around 3,700 points in single core. My prediction is that single core is not massively improved, and Apple instead focused more on efficiency and making their cores a little bit smaller to not absolutely balloon the cost of making a 2 nanometer chip. 18,000 points in multi-core could get you over 21,000 points. This is absolutely a massive leap and really great for a 12-core chip. These are performance numbers that would be more associated with 16-core processors and stuff like that. And of cores that aren't half made out of efficiency cores. So really great numbers. With the GPU, Apple promises roughly 30% more. They also promise a geometry engine that's actually far above that. They also promise further architectural improvements to dynamic caching, ray tracing, and of course AI compute. But when it comes to the exact numbers, we'll have to wait and see. Let's continue here. Okay. Apple today debuted M6 in the new. M6 everyday performance power efficiency leap. M5 Ultra unleashes unprecedented desktop class power and massive unified memory bandwidth to conquer the most demanding projects. Guys, we have so many people watching right now. Please leave a like. Please let me know your opinion in the live chat. Please support us with a super chat if you feel like doing so. This goes a long way to help the channel. I try to keep these distractions to a minimum, but it's very important. I have been on a little bit of a content hiatus, so it really means the world to me if you can support me in those ways. Thank you so much. Apple today debuted M6 in the new Mac Mini. We're going to get to the exact product and the exact prices. This is going to be a longer stream today. And M5 Ultra in the Mac Studio. Obviously, M5 Ultra probably does not fit into the Mac Mini really comfortably, providing an extraordinary leap in performance and AI capabilities. M6, Apple's first state-of-the-art 2-nanometer chip. If you guys know, Apple bought up around 50% of TSMC's 2-nanometer capacity. This actually resulted in a lot of companies like Qualcomm and MediaTek, and very likely Intel, but especially AMD, actually booking N2P from TSMC, because the initial 2-nanometer took probably a bit longer than TSMC expected. This is why we had 3 generations of 3-nanometer, N3B, N3E, and N3P. While now with 2-nanometer, it seems like in the span of a few months, we're getting N2, and then right away N2P. And maybe some server class N2X will not be too far away either. So this is actually going to be a case where this year Apple might have what is technically an inferior node. Though don't forget, with technologies like FinFlex, which is... wait, is it? No, it's not FinFlex anymore. What's the successor of FinFlex? FinFlex successor. Because obviously FinFlex was for FinFET node. It's NanoFlex for the GAFET 2-nanometer nodes. Right, so Apple could technically make this 2-nanometer chip denser. Then some people even make N2P, depending on what exact pitch size and stuff like that they're using. Pitch width. What's the exact word? I always forget that. Yeah, so this might not actually be the latest node for long, but it is the latest node for now. And as I said before, they do not talk about new memory packaging or anything like that. Now, that might be because they're not using it, or it might be like something like WMCM, which is rumored for the A20 Pro, or it might be because it's just too nerdy to bring up, but who knows? M6 advances every compute block, delivering gains across every dimension of performance. The chip features a larger 12-core CPU complex with the world's fastest CPU core. So this could technically still be pretty much the same CPU core as on the M5. I don't know, to be quite honest. I also don't know, obviously, how good are the P cores? How good are the E cores? We know that together they result in 20% more multi-threaded performance, but for all we know, the single core gains could be actually very similar to that. Because even though we have more cores, we have a smaller number of super cores. So the actual balance between the individual cores will have definitely changed from the previous generation. We have an entirely new class of cores inside this chip that we didn't have on the M5. We also get a larger 12-core GPU now with neural accelerators. This is important on the Mac Mini, which is coming from the M4 generation of processors, which do not have neural accelerators. Over the M5, this is not a huge architectural leap. Again, I'm not sure about this chip actually supporting FP8 or not. You can let me know if you find any of that out. But it is still a big leap overall. If you look at, obviously, even older chips like M1, M2, M3, there are massive changes now over just a few years. There is a dual 16-core neural engine setup and up to 170 gigabytes per second of unified memory bandwidth. Now, this actually disproves a Mark Gurman prediction. I hope the AI can actually M6 bandwidth, because Mark Gurman actually predicted the M6 would feature 200 gigabytes per second. So I guess we don't need AI. We're just going to open 9 to 5 Mac. So that would have represented a pretty solid 30% gain over the current 153 gigabytes per second, or the previous 153 gigabytes per second that we got on the M5. But nevertheless, we got more, but only 10% more. So if you were somebody who really wanted a ton more bandwidth, okay, you're not getting it. And there is another downside to it, which is if we go actually to the Mac Mini and then we look at its tech specs, you'll find when it comes to memory bandwidth that it seems like Apple is reserving the 170 gigabytes per second for the higher end memory configurations. So the 16 gigabyte configuration most likely is still the same 9600 mega transfers per second memory, while this is very likely 10,667 mega transfers per second memory and very likely LPDDR5X. Technically, 10,667 can be both LPDDR5X and LPDDR6, but given the fact that this most likely is still on a 128-bit bus, which is not compatible with LPDDR6 because LPDDR6 comes in 24-bit intervals, I guess, which does not neatly fit into 128. It would be 120-bit and then 144 and stuff like that. So this to me suggests that Apple is using the faster memory on the higher configurations. Now, could they be downclocking it on the 16 gigabytes? Sure, but very likely they're mostly reusing the same 9600 mega transfers per second memory, the one that they're also using in the M5 Pro, M5 Max, and stuff like that. So they definitely can utilize both types of memory, but they're not entirely standing still, which is also good. Obviously, if this had been an LPDDR6 system, 168-bit or something like that, that would have been quite amazing, but that's not happening, unfortunately. Let's continue with our chip discussion. M5 Ultra, the ultimate powerhouse for Pro and AI workloads, uses next-gen Ultra Fusion technology. So this is important because very likely what had happened with the M4 Ultra is that Apple used the same Ultra Fusion technology with 2.5, I believe, terabytes per second of bandwidth that connected those dies for the M1 Ultra, the M2 Ultra, and the M3 Ultra. And it's very likely that this Ultra Fusion technology simply stopped being good enough by the time we got to the M4 generation. That too much performance would have been left on the table if they used this interconnect technology. Now there is one that's almost twice as fast, so we have some room to breathe again. M5 Ultra is also a quad die architecture architecture for the first time in an M-series system on a chip, or SoC. The chip includes an up to 36-core CPU, so that makes sense because the M5 Max is an 18 CPU core chip, and up to 80-core GPU, again, double of the 40-core GPU on the M5 Max, with a massive 1.2 terabytes per second of unified memory bandwidth, which is basically exactly 2 times more than the 614 gigabytes per second of the M5 Max. And it represents a 50% improvement over the M3 Ultra, which used the much older 6400 megatransfers per second LPDDR5. This is now 9600 megatransfers per second LPDDR5X, so you get 50% more bandwidth. With their advanced technologies, these SoC deliver extraordinary compute with industry-leading power efficiency, empowering users to do even more on a desktop. Some quotes from Sri Santaman, Apple's vice president of the Silicon Engineering Group, who works and responds directly to Johnny Cerrucci, or reports directly to Johnny Cerrucci, saying, "Today we are debuting the next giant leap in performance and AI compute for Apple Silicon with the incredibly advanced M6 and the most powerful M-series chip yet, the M5 Ultra," said Sri, Apple's vice president of the Silicon Engineering Group. Built using the cutting-edge 2-nanometer process, M6 combines a new CPU complex, 2 additional CPU and GPU cores, a dual 16-core neural engine, and more unified memory bandwidth to power through workloads with amazing energy efficiency. And for the ultimate desktop performance and the ability to run massive AI models, M5 Ultra features a massive GPU, now with neural accelerators and more unified memory bandwidth, pushing the boundaries of what a desktop can do. M6, optimized design and enhanced performance. Designed to power the workflows of everyday users, students, developers, AI, hobbyists, and enterprises, M6 offers the ideal balance of performance, power efficiency, and on-device AI to effortlessly fly through daily tasks, coding, and creative projects. Plasmavoid, digging the analysis already and appreciation comparison for context? Well, thank you very much. That's what I'm here to deliver. And Hamza, haven't seen you in a while, saying hello. M6 is built using cutting-edge 2-nanometer process technology, packing greater transistor density into a smaller die for a major leap in performance and power efficiency. Wait, they've managed to make the die smaller even with 2 more GPU cores and dual neural engine. Well, that's actually quite impressive, I would argue. It's a little bit scummy from them because obviously they did not want to pay more. It's not like the Mac Mini doesn't have the power and cooling budget to handle a slightly larger 2-nanometer chip. But yeah, this also very likely suggests that the A20 Pro is going to be the same size as the A19 Pro, or potentially even a little bit smaller. And the A19 Pro was already under 100 millimeters squared. I agree, Hamza. I think a lot of us thought that we would have several months, or at least 2, before these devices were updated. This is something that Mark Gurman ended up predicting like yesterday and the day before that. So, and I actually became incredibly bullish on the idea. Well, if Mark Gurman is saying it, Mark Gurman is known to sometimes get these leaks very, very last minute. So if he's predicting it on like the weekend or on Monday, I was like, man, the chances that it's happening on Tuesday are actually quite good. On Monday, Apple is launching new beta, so this is a slightly different thing. But yeah, it's happening now, which is quite great because today is my less busy day. M6 also introduces a dual 16-core neural engine. I always want to say dual-core 16-core neural engine, providing up to 2 times the peak compute. This is why I'm saying this is very likely architecturally pretty much the same neural engine as before. This does, by the way, line up with Mark Gurman's previous prediction, saying that the neural engine would be one of the things most improved on the M6, and then the M7 would give a maximum GPU leap for AI compute. At this point, I would very much believe that also the M7 is also going to have a new architecture for the neural engine, maybe combining those two dual neural engines in some ways. HTC One M7 256 gigabyte on the Mac Mini is diabolical. There's no Mac Mini with 256 gigabyte. 256 giga. Oh, you mean storage? Sorry, that's the problem when one spec can simultaneously cover the Mac Mini and the Mac Pro on their absolute different ends, which is, yes, the base M6 Mac Mini comes with 256 gigabytes of storage, and yes, the current max configuration of the M5 Ultra Max Studio comes with 256 gigabytes of RAM. It will take 2 months before Apple makes a 512 gigabyte version available. Yes, and the prices are still basically as high as ever when it comes to these upgrades. So there's 2 times the peak compute over previous generations. Now that's specifically for the neural engine. Obviously, it does not have 2 times the AI compute over the M5, but it has way more than 2x the AI compute over the M4. So that's interesting. Spielka SAP, haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back to the stream. There are grounds for concern that Apple may introduce a 1+2+4 configuration for the A20 Pro. You will be a very, unless you are one of my guys in the Discord already, I think you will do really well in the Discord because they are making very similar predictions here. I hope they don't make a 256 gigabyte MacBook Air again. Well, they never removed 256 gigabyte on the Mac Mini, right? So there's no backtracking technically for them here. The other thing is that the MacBook Air has a 256 gigabyte product in the lineup for those who want it. It's called the MacBook Neo. So my hope is that in future years, Apple will standardize 512 gigabytes on the Mac Mini and maybe even give us a Mac Neo with 256 gigabytes. The reason why the 256 gigabyte version exists, for one, is to upsell you on the higher configurations, but also, and therefore, increase Apple's average sales price. I'm not lying about this. Apple, of course, I'm not going to defend Apple, quote unquote. But to me, I will actually say that I disagree with these configurations to a degree, which is I think that they should have just, in my opinion, at that point, they should have just made this $1,000, right? Deleted the 256 gigabyte version for like logistical efficiency, giving some profit margin back. And yes, it would have reduced the profit margin on this configuration because it would go from $10.99 to $9.99. But I think that would have ultimately been a better price. But then now Apple would have to contend with news coverage that said not that Apple had increased prices by another $100, which they had already done before, but now that prices have also gone up another $200. So they probably wanted to keep the entry price low, but let's be honest, most people are probably buying something. Even if you're using external storage, right? Like, my question is, what would you be like? I think most people would probably go with like 1 terabyte and maybe like 24 gigs of RAM. That way you can use like a 17 gigabyte AI model pretty nicely in it and still have the rest of the system working pretty well. 32 gigs, I guess, if you're really working and making money from AI, right? And well, I know some people for things like video editing and stuff as well, right? So it's not entirely unheard of, but I really don't know who. Like, I guess the 256 gigabyte argument is also that you can use external storage. This thing, by the way, now comes standard with 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, right? So that's, I believe, actually a first in Apple's products. And my bet on this is actually that 1 gigabit Ethernet kind of is barely produced in a premium way anymore. And maybe the cheap 1 gigabit components were actually too poor, maybe too high latency or something like that for Apple. So they ended up giving us 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. Unfortunately, they did not reduce the price of the 10 gigabit Ethernet option. That one is still $100 for a 4x increase rather than a 10x increase before. But at least it's not actually a price increase. But yes, if you want to use this with like an external server farm for things like video editing, you have now Thunderbolt. You have obviously Thunderbolt 4 on the M6 version. You have Thunderbolt 5 on the M5 Pro and M5. Well, there's no M5 Max version of the Mac Mini, but yeah, that I guess is why Apple think they can get away with 256 or 512 gigabyte configuration, because even if you look at the M5 Pro, if you look at 24 gigabytes, right, that one starts with an equally abysmal 512. That, in my opinion, should be a 1 terabyte configuration. Plasma Void, indeed looking forward to benchmarks for that GPU. Yeah, that GPU is the most interesting. Well, the neural engine technically, but it's easy to predict, basically saying, oh, if the software nicely scales across both neural engines, up to 2 times faster. If not, probably not. With the GPU, there's actually a lot of interesting individual announcements here where Apple promises RT performance, AI performance, better geometry engines, everything, basically. So 2 times faster AI workflows with dual neural engine. System frameworks can automatically utilize both engines. So I assume by that they mean Core ML and Metal, and of course MLX, which taps into those kinds of performance things. They can utilize both engines simultaneously. There might be a difference between how large your engine is, and maybe at first some apps might not do it perfectly, but technically Apple says that on a system level, if your task supports the neural engine, it should support basically scaling across 2 neural engines, which is quite nice. Enabling applications to see faster model execution. M6 has a brand new 12-core CPU complex, 2 more cores than M5 that consist of 2 super cores, 4 performance cores, and 6 E-cores. It delivers the world's fastest single-threaded performance. So again, this could mean that it's technically still the same core, super core as the M5, because the M5 up until this moment still was very much the fastest single core performance. I mean, we do have this number here, right? I think, I mean, it's 9800. I mean, the X3D doesn't even have faster 9800X, it would be, I think. Wait, is there no, or do I have to type in 3D? Okay, this is 3D. Even with the non 3D version, even if it clocks a little bit higher, that's going to be like 3300 max. And if we look at the X Elite Gen 2, do we have a second gen here? For one, here is called Ultra. Wow, oh my god, these names are so stupid. X Elite. Is it called Gen 2 or X Elite 2 Extreme? Yeah, you can see even that one is like still firmly behind the M5, and that one is obviously launching this year or has launched, and it's not going to be updated for the next 1.5 years. So if the M6 further overtakes it here, and you can also see that this chip is with, mind you, 18 cores, delivers roughly 23,000, let's say 24,000 to be generous. If the M6 delivers, let's say 3,800, 3,900 single core points, delivers 21,000 points in multi-core, has way better neural engine at that point, has way better GPU, because this thing actually underperforms the M5 when it comes to the GPU. So, and the M6 promises to be like 30% faster than that. I see no justification for this chip existing. And mind you, again, Apple is going to come up with the M7 in the first half of next year. And there isn't going to be an X Elite Gen 3 next year. They do like 2-year jumps with the X Elite chips. At least they have done thus far. If they change it next year, who knows? So the M6 is now a 12-core CPU. Okay, that's impressive. Yes, but they deleted 2 super cores, and instead they added 4 P cores for that, right? So it's a little bit of a back and forth. Hamza, if you want to buy a fully maxed out Mac Studio with M5 Ultra with 16 terabytes of SSD and 256 gigs of memory, right? Not storage, it will cost you a mind-boggling 18K. And now you guys can guess why Apple removed the Mac Pro from existence, right? Because if you think about it, the Mac Pro is already more expensive than the Mac Studio, right? Apple charged you like $3,000 more for just the form factor. Now that would have been 21K. Sorry, I'm a little bit low on sugar. I usually don't eat and drink as much. So just as a, if you want to explore more of my content, be less worried. I'm not constantly doing like food breaks like I'm doing today. This is very untypical for me. 1.2 times faster multi-threaded performance. We've already looked at what, of course, that could mean, with roughly 18,000 points in multi-core for the current M5. I mean, not that I really need it, because 18 times 1.2, 1.8, 3.6, so that's technically 21.6, but I guess I can type it in. 18 times 1.2. Yes, I typed in 12. 1.2. 1,2. Jesus, man, Apple is so sensitive when it comes to what you type into Spotlight search. Yep. Okay. So that means even though the M6 has more cores, it performs similar to the M5? No, it absolutely performs faster. It has 20% more multi-threaded performance, which kind of suggests that it scales just nicely with its CPU core count. But don't forget, the cores are faster individually. They just have a lesser number of the super high-end cores, what we call the super cores now. So here, 1.2x, which is 20% more. It's 0.4 times faster than M1, which is the chip in my M1 iPad Pro, which is obviously now feeling its age slowly. The super cores blazed through single-threaded workloads. The performance cores use less power and join the super cores to run demanding multi-threaded workloads. And the efficiency cores handle everyday background tasks, all with industry-leading performance per watt. All of that I explained early on in the stream. As a result, demanding CPU tasks such as editing images, compiling code, indexing new files, which like a lot of people who are using the macOS and iOS 27 betas, people are really losing their shit about there being so much indexing being done, but that's necessary for Siri and Spotlight Search and everything to work well. It's just Apple previously didn't tell us when it was happening. And running agentic AI workloads faster than ever. Accelerated GPU and faster memory bandwidth. So Plasma Void, I agree with you. This is the thing I'm looking most forward to seeing benchmarked outside of Geekbench Compute. I have massive respect for Geekbench, but Geekbench Compute does not line up with like gaming testing and stuff like that. But who knows? We'll see how all these benchmarks develop over time. M6 features 12-core GPU, 2 more cores than M5. Mind you, Apple says that this is a smaller chip. Smaller die for majorly, so 2 more CPU cores, 2 more GPU cores, double the neural engine cores. So this is quite an impressive leap. There is a neural accelerator in each core. This is the same concept as on the A19 Pro and the M5. This design delivers a nearly 30% increase in peak GPU compute for AI compared to M5, so which was already roughly 35% faster than the M4. So this would explain a rough doubling of the performance, or 80% or so, and more than 8 times compared to M1, enabling significantly faster prompt processing when interacting with on-device LLMs. Apple is showing here a new game for the Mac, Mixtape, not the most really gameplay involved gameplay game ever. But hey, it's a new game for the Mac, so that's at least good. M6 features a powerful, larger 12-core GPU that provides higher geometry rates and updated dynamic caching to deliver stunning visuals and fluid frame rates in demanding games like Mixtape. In addition, M6 offers Apple's latest advanced graphics capabilities, including updates to the shader core architecture. So we'll have to see if this includes any kind of dual issue FP32 compute or something like that. Doesn't quite sound like it because Apple might promise us larger gains. But don't forget that dual issue FP32 rarely ever means double the performance of before. So yeah, I'm not sure. Dynamic caching, now again, M5 just got a new generation of dynamic caching. Did Apple improve it further? It sounds like it, because one thing that they're also advertising is hardware accelerated ray tracing getting a new generation. And we know that the M5 just got a new gen for that. But when we're going to look at benchmarks later on, we'll find that it is faster in that regard. These technologies combine to deliver stunning visual realism, faster rendering, and higher frame rates for gaming. M6 is also 50% increased geometry, also has a 50% increased geometry rates for complex graphics. Now, this is something that's a little bit hard to explain because we always focus more on shaders as the baseline for compute, but the way that compute is distributed, especially on something like games, sometimes though on like vector graphics and 3D rendering, depends on how the GPU can handle geometry. And that might have to do with how much cache it has, or for example, tile memory for this kind of GPU. Right. Sometimes it's just a very advanced architecture. If you look, for example, at the PS5 has fewer T-flops and less peak memory bandwidth than the Xbox Series X. But partially because of a much better geometry engine, it ends up sometimes outperforming it, despite a very similar, if even sometimes less advanced architecture. M6 supports up to 32 gigabytes of unified memory to multitask across demanding apps and run LLMs on device for secure and private agentic tasks. It also provides up to 170, so that's important, up to the baseline, most likely still 153. It provides up to 170 gigabytes per second of unified memory bandwidth, a 10% increase over M5, and a 2.5 times increase over M1, because the M1 used a measly 4,233 megatransfers per second, 4266 megatransfers per second LPDDR4X. It was actually the M1 Pro and M1 Max, and later the M2 chips that finally switched to 6400 megatransfers per second LPDDR5. And now we are, of course, on 9600 to 10,667 megatransfers per second memory bandwidth of LPDDR5X. Guys, we have 2 times as many people watching as we have likes. Please help out the channel. Leave a like. Subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying this and you want to see more. Share this video out with anybody else who you think might enjoy it. Comment in the live chat. Leave a super chat if you want to donate to this channel to help it out directly. Consider becoming a channel member here on YouTube or on Patreon. You'll find the links to the latter in the description of the channel. And consider joining my Discord. Again, links are also in the description of the channel. Okay, I think now I can actually take it easier when it comes to drinking and eating. John Sands, I secured an unbinned M5 Ultra 256 gigabyte configuration. My God, bro, 4 terabytes. Now I just have a few weeks to figure out how to pay for it. Well, congratulations and good luck on that task as well. M5 Ultra. So this was basically Apple's M5 preamble. There's going to be more on the, M6, because when we're going to talk about the Mac Mini, oh wow, my website seems to have crashed here to the point that I cannot even reload it. That's nice. Here is the Mac Mini. You know what? We actually talked about the M6 first. So let's actually continue on that by actually talking about the Mac Mini, I would argue. And then we're transitioning talking about the M5 Ultra. And from there, we'll transition to talking about the Mac Studio. I think that's actually going to be quite a nice divide. So I can just scroll down to this. And meanwhile, here we can move on to this. Apple's new Mac Mini features M6 and M5 Pro, delivers a massive leap in AI performance, supercharging the leading desktop for always-on agentic computing. Mac Mini delivers up to 4 times faster AI performance, up to 2 times faster graphics and storage, along with enhanced connectivity, all in its ultra-compact footprint. Apple today announced the new Mac Mini with the all-new M6 and powerful M5 Pro, because that one is obviously not new, delivering a dramatic boost in performance and even more versatility in its super small desktop design. With M6, Mac Mini now delivers up to 4 times faster AI performance, 2 times faster storage and graphics, and 40% faster CPU performance. Obviously, we know that the M6 features a 20% lead over the M5. The M5, at least then to Apple, would mean has like a 15% leap over the M4, though it is more like 20% in some tasks. Though, of course, when we actually look at Geekbench, I actually wouldn't put it past that it's less. So if we look here, where is the M5? So the M4 is 15,435. The M5 is 18,000. So let's call this 15,500. Let's call this 18,000. That's actually, yeah, I mean, 18,000 divided by 15,500. It's 16% faster. Okay, that makes sense. I guess Apple's numbers really line up well with the new Geekbench here. HTC One M7, not gonna lie, me seeing the Mac Mini M6 on my YouTube homepage, it was a bit of a shock. Yeah, I was not quite surprised, but I was shocked. John says, apparently cooling is redesigned on the Studio. We'll get to that a little bit later. I actually haven't read much about it yet. Okay. Everything on Mac Mini with M6 feels incredibly fast, from everyday productivity tasks to agentic AI workflows. Mac Mini with M5 Pro delivers even more pro-level performance to breeze through demanding projects, from video production to game development. If only we had modem. Oh, why is my iPad doing Wi-Fi? Guys, do you have any kind of connectivity issues with my, or was that really potentially just my my iPad? Because my iPad should be connected to 5G, but for some reason it decided 0 dropped frames thus far. Connectivity seems fine, a little bit on the lower end for kpbs, but looks good to me. So you can let me know if there are any issues for you. Seems like my iPad is also doing much better now. As well as upgraded 2.5 gigabit Ethernet with a 10 gigabit option still available. Combined with the power of macOS 27, so these devices will be coming out when macOS 27 is out. This could be partially why it's a month-long wait, but I assume stuff like RAM and storage supply issues are more to blame on this. And the next generation of Apple Intelligence, including Siri AI. The new Mac Mini is a tremendous upgrade for existing and new to Mac users. And I guess as we looked at something like Mac Studio, some of you guys might be coming from like a 2014 iMac. So who knows? The new Mac Mini is available for pre-order starting today, with availability beginning September 22nd. HTC, I agree. Healthy progression for the CPU, 16% to 20%. Who knows? Apple usually rounds, so a 20% uplift could technically be like a 22% uplift, so that would be nice. Mac Mini has always been our most versatile Mac, whether it's being used as a home computer, powering a professional studio, or it's an always-on agentic device. It's the little Mac that can do it all, said Johnny Cerrugi, Apple's chief hardware officer. Now, I can do a Johnny Cerrugi accent, and I am allowed to do that because of my ethnic background before anybody comes to me with anything anti-Semitic, because Johnny Saruji is an Israeli Arab. Um, that being said, I'm only going to do it for one word or so that he says, which I'm not sure if he says it here. um, today we are taking. I cannot do it. I can only do it for performance per watt. That's what I can do for Johnny Saruji. I can do the industry-leading performance per watt. That's how he says it, or roughly how he says it, or how I think he says it. I'm sorry. Today we're taking this versatility even further with a more powerful CPU and graphics, neural accelerators in the GPU, and higher memory bandwidth. Mac Mini with M6 delivers a whole new level of AI performance. And with up to 18-core CPU and 20-core GPU, Mac Mini with M5 Pro is an ultra-compact powerhouse for complex workloads. We can wait to see all the incredible ways people will use it next. Why doesn't he mention performance per watt? That's it turns more into Doc Brown from Back to the Future than halfway through it becomes more Doc Brown than Johnny Saruji, I guess. 1.25 gigawatts in my Mac Mini. Now I don't know what I'm doing. Mac Mini with the all-new M6. We can power through this because we talked about a lot of it. 12-core CPU, 2 more cores than before. World's fastest single-threaded performance. 12-core GPU, 2 more cores than before. Neural accelerators in each core, like on M5, but a massive leap over M4. Resulting in up to 4 times faster AI performance and 2 times faster graphics than Mac Mini with M4. We talked about healthy progression in the chat. This is very healthy progression. From M4 to M5, that means like a 35-40% improvement. And then this now means a 30 to maybe even a bit higher improvement, especially when it comes to things like ray tracing and more complex games with ray tracing. By the way, guys, if there are network issues on my end, though it doesn't seem like that, because HTC, you're saying that, I'm not sure if, I think that's on you because my iPad still shows my stream as stable. But if it's happening, it might be because I have to use my old router. So I am actually getting optic fiber in my apartment. I already have the box. But my router is coming tomorrow, so I actually sent away my Wi-Fi 6 router, which handled up to 250 megabytes per second on my old contract, but obviously it could handle much better. But now I'm limited to a super old Wi-Fi 5 router that is actually limited by its own hardware to 120 megabytes per second. So or megabit per second, sorry. So if there are any connectivity issues on my end, that's most likely. I already connected it via Ethernet to my Mac to make sure it's as performant as possible, but there might be issues. I also have my old iPhone connected to it. Oh yeah, and it switched from using my iPad as a hotspot to using my Wi-Fi. I don't know why it actually did that. Okay, now I have freed a little bit of Wi-Fi stuff as well. So you guys will let me know if there are any connectivity issues in the future. I would really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yes. So we still have a good amount of people watching. Nice. Guys, please leave likes if you are actually enjoying this and watching through all this time. Means a lot to me, helps the stream, helps attract new people, helps to make the live chat more livelier. But yeah, let me know if there are any issues. In addition, the all-new you see, I almost did it. The all-new dual 16-core neural engine. I mean, they call it all new, but I assume the all new is the dual, not the actual 16-core neural engine. Delivers up to 2 times faster performance than the previous generation, and combined with the advanced GPU, Mac Mini is a powerhouse for all things AI. And with 16 gigabytes of standard unified memory configurable to 32 gigabytes, as well as higher memory bandwidth, again, up to 170 gigabytes per second. So that's 40, 24, and 32 gigabyte configurations. Multitasking is faster than ever, at least on the base chip. Okay. And here we can now get into some actual concrete numbers. Mac Mini with M6 delivers up to 13.5 times faster LLM prompt processing in LM Studio. Shout out to LM Studio, great app. When compared to Mac Mini with M1, up to 4.8 times faster than M4. So here we get more than 4 times faster. Now, if we look at M4 to M5, Apple promised something like 3 to 4x per GPU core, because they had the same amount of GPU cores, right? Now we are adding 20% more cores, and we're getting kind of 20% more performance. So this to me would suggest that we are not necessarily seeing something like FP8 compute come into question. But we'll have to wait and see, I guess. Up to 2 times faster spreadsheet calculations on Microsoft Excel. I think this is largely a CPU, even mostly a single core tasks. Up to 1.5 times faster than M4. So this also suggests that we are in for a good architectural leap. I mean, if we look at single core performance here, right, the base M4, which I think was clocked a little bit lower than the M4 Pro. Yeah, 100 megahertz. That one delivered, let's say, 3,300-ish. Yeah. And meanwhile, the M5 delivers 3,600-ish. So that's actually about just 10% more, even if we go by the lesser 3277 number and don't round up. If we round up a little bit to 3650, then yeah, it's more like 10%. But here Apple promises actually a good deal more, 1.5 times faster. So I guess some multi-threading is part of it. Apple did just say that that is, I believe, 40% faster or so. I think, 40% faster CPU performance. So I guess in disk task with Excel, it actually goes beyond. So maybe Geekbench will not even be like our best guideline always. Some tasks seem to be scaling above that, even if we use the multi-threaded number, by the way. So if we use single core, it's way above what we actually have. If we're using multi-threaded, it should be, it's still better. Up to 2 times faster gaming performance with ray tracing in Cyberpunk 2077. This is compared with M4. Now, M5 already got a ray tracing uplift as well over the M4, but this suggests that this architecture is also better over the M5 when it comes to ray tracing, probably by like a 10% margin. And again, this is relative to raster, and raster itself is 30% faster according to Apple. So, and 50% faster apparently when it comes to complex geometry. So this might be a combination now of raster and RT, and maybe even the geometry engine here. So quite a, like, this is why I'm saying I'm most interested in the upgrades to the GPU, because they seem to be the most versatile in that regard. Unfortunately, this is a CPU. Not that I mind the CPU benchmark, but it's also not like the best. Mac Mini with M5 Pro, unprecedented Pro performance, except for being precedented, of course, in the M5 Pro MacBook Pro. It delivers what's possible on such a small desktop, enabling Pro users to take on demanding workflows like app development, video rendering, scientific simulations, and more. M5 Pro features up to an 18-core CPU. On the baseline, it will be bin to 15 cores with remarkable multi-threaded performance and up to a 20-core GPU. Hopefully, that means that M7 Pro will come with 24 GPU cores or more, and they will be architecturally even superior to the M6. So if you're willing to wait, you'll get quite a nice generation uplift if you're buying in this category, because there will not be an M6 Pro chip or M6 Max chip or M6 Ultra chip. All those bigger chips that happen after M5 Pro, M5 Max, M5 Ultra, they will be of the M7 generation. HTC saying, by the way, I tried macOS Golden Gate and it was good, except that multitasking had some glitches. Well, we just got a new beta yesterday, and don't forget, usually, like if you were saying you tried it out only recently, sometimes stuff just normalizes over time, right? They're like usually the first day new beta can actually be quite buggy as there's indexing going on and stuff like that. Yeah. 20-core GPU with an enhanced shader core and third-gen ray tracing. So I wish that they would call the M6 exact generation out. Like, does the M6 technically have fourth-generation ray tracing? But unfortunately, they do not quite call that out. For complex work in 3D design, VFX, and game development, with neural accelerators in each GPU core, M5 Pro also delivers significant gains in AI compute compared to the previous Mac Mini, allowing users to tackle more advanced AI workflows like photo and video upscaling and running large diffusion models faster than ever. Mac Mini with M5 Pro supports up to 64 gigabytes of unified memory with 307 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth. This makes it, I believe, now the like pretty much the fastest 256-bit system, maybe together with like the NVIDIA Spark stuff, which still isn't out, and Apple already is pushing a new generation. I think I used like beta 3. Oh, yeah, well, now we are in beta 7, bro. Yeah. So 64 gigabytes, 307 gigabytes per second. That's on a 256-bit bus. This is using 9600 megatransfers per second memory because we know its configuration from the MacBook Pro. Enable users to run even larger local AI models, work with complex 3D scenes, edit ProRes RAW files, and load large custom data sets for research. And within, okay, this I'll say in Johnny Cerrugi voice. And with industry-leading performance per watt, Mac Mini with M5 Pro is quite efficient and ideal as an always-on desktop for AI agents or creative workflows. I think that was actually quite good. Come on, guys, let me know what you thought. That wasn't bad. He has a very distinct voice. Like, I know the Israeli accent, but it's still a bit different from that. Yeah. Mac Mini with M5 Pro delivers up to 8.5 times faster LLM processing in LM Studio versus M2 Pro, and up to 4 times faster than M4 Pro. So this is the one thing that makes me kind of think that the GPU cores do not have entirely new neural engines. Because think about it, M5 Pro is 4 times faster than M4 Pro with the same amount of GPU cores, right? M6 is 4.8 times faster than M4 because it happens to have 20% more GPU cores. And if you think that a neural accelerator accelerates AI prompt processing by like 4x per core, add 20% more cores over 4, you get 4.8x. Again, if Apple mentioned FP8 somewhere on this website, I would be very happy. And we know that M5 Pro does not do it. Apple might have left it out to not make the M5 Pro look bad, but that would be a little bit sad. And now I'm rhyming. So you guys stop whining. Yo, Jesus Christ, I'm so cringe. God, I'm gonna end it in Minecraft. In Minecraft, no TOS. Okay. HCU saying pretty good. Well, I guess that's all I can hope for my Johnny Cerruti impression. Up to 4.5 times faster rendering performance with ray tracing in Blender compared to Mac Mini with M2 Pro. That makes sense because the M3 generation is where Apple introduced hardware accelerated ray tracing. Now it's M3, M4, M5 over that. So yeah, that makes sense. Up to 1.4 times faster than M4 Pro. So this to me is where I suggest that there is like a 10-ish% improvement in terms of GPU when it comes to neural engine and when it comes to hardware accelerated ray tracing, because we have seen that Apple advertise. Wait, no, 1.4 times faster than M4 Pro. With M6, I mean, it's harder to do that because we don't know how much the extra like 10% memory bandwidth matters that we get from 10,667 mega transfers. It does sound to me like the M6 is getting more out of its hardware acceleration for ray tracing. Maybe I'm wrong, but this to me suggests that the M6 does have a newer GPU architecture than the M5. Which is interesting because the M5 was already a newer GPU architecture than the M4. And the M4 was very similar to the M3. There might have been some small customizations, but it was still technically in the same generation. Apple GPU generations. They talk about that a lot with developers, with their Apple developer videos. The game changer, and then with even faster. Yeah, but M4 also improved over the M3 with hardware accelerate. So it seems like Apple sometimes will call it GPU gen like newer. Yeah, okay, so yeah, you see, no, Apple 8. No, that's not what I'm looking at. Every M chip explained, no. A list of all Apple GPU generations. M3, same as M4? They have a name. Is it like Gen 10 or something like that? Apple GPU Gen, or is the latest Gen 11? Change to English. Show us AI. Depending. No. Oh, here. Apple M series. No, 11-inch devices. What? No. M1. Intel Gen 11. Okay, there is a name for it. You can let me know if I'm forgetting something. Or is it 10 still? Because they make those developer videos where they outline, and I think it does suggest that Apple's architectural it's G, yeah, it's G 15 for the A17 Pro. It's G14. Wait, so it does change with every G. Okay, G17. Okay. Now we are getting somewhere. Apple GPU. Wait, what was it? So we are looking at Apple GPU Gen G16. So G16 should be M4 and A18 Pro, but Apple A16G. No, not that. Is it real? Is it really that hard to find these classifications, or are they too nerdy in a way? Like, is it really meaningless? Is the question, right? If I type in G17. Apple G is the internal hardware GPU generation identifier used for Apple's in Apple's official documentation. And this architecture falls under the GPU family 10 microarchitecture. Okay, so that's what I was confused at. What GPU generation comes before that? And does it cover one generation of chips or several? Okay, so G16 or Apple GPU Family 9. The G16 architecture was first introduced with the A17 Pro and the M3 family, but it was later refined and expanded into the A18 and A18 Pro chips and the M4 family. So that's exactly what I've been looking at. So then the question is do we now have a switch from family 10 to family 11, or do we technically have at least a G18, but that's still part of family 10 or something like that? Or is it so completely new? Is it simultaneously G18 and family 10 once we look at the M6 and A20 Pro? Because this is something that's too nerdy. Apple usually only says that on like their development websites so that developers know how things work. But basically, hardware accelerated ray tracing, dynamic caching, and mesh shading have all been introduced on the M3. And Spielke, you're saying it's still Apple 10, but is it at least G18 then, right? Because apparently you can have several differences in the generation, right? If this is sufficiently re-architectured, right, could it be that Apple sees this as part of family 10, but sufficiently different from G17, which if we look at G17, that's the A19 Pro. But also, has Apple already given us some kind of documentation on that? Because obviously it would be quite nice to know that exactly. But yeah, guys, thank you. I know that was very nerdy. So, okay, now I have that in my head. Family 10, and then the G numbers are more directly in line with the actual chips, but they do not match always exactly, like G16 being an A17 Pro and A18 modifier, while A17 is for A19 Pro. Okay. Oh, Jesus, that was quite a nerdy direction that we took here. Okay. Up to 2.1 times faster image processing in Affinity when compared to Mac Mini with M2 Pro. Up to 1.5 times faster than M4 Pro. Again, this also suggests that we are going above like some other because that would now put the M6 actually very much in line with what you would expect with the numbers, right? Like if it's 30% faster architecturally than M5, and that one is 50% faster than M4, now here you can use the Pro, but the scaling is the same, then that suggests that the GPUs are very much in line. No update for HDMI problems? Are there HDMI problems on the Mac Mini? Guys, let me know. Maybe I've missed something. But also, by the way, if there are problems on HDMI, Apple does not bring up bugs with new product announcements, right? Because Apple does not acknowledge bugs that way. They'll just issue software updates, or silently a new generation will not have the issues of a previous generation. If you're saying that the HDMI did not offer some features that you wanted, and maybe they're still not on the tech specs list, that could be possible. But overall, I would argue that if you're having some kind of bug with a previous Mac Mini, it might be fixed. It just definitely won't be mentioned here. Best-in-class connectivity. The new Mac Mini with M6 and M5 Pro now support Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 6. Again, thanks to the N1 chip. 2.5 gigabit Ethernet for faster wired connectivity, and 10 gigabyte is available. On its front are two USB ports that support USB 3 and a headphone jack with high impedance headphone support for convenient access. On the back, there are three Thunderbolt 4 ports, so we are getting 2 times faster storage. Versus the M4, just like the M5 got over it, but just like the M5 stayed on Thunderbolt 4, so is M6 staying on Thunderbolt 4. So Apple did not double the PCIe bandwidth to their Thunderbolt ports. And there are three Thunderbolt 5 ports on the Mac Mini with M5 Pro, along with HDMI and Ethernet. Thunderbolt 5 also allows users to cluster multiple Mac Mini systems together to run large AI models entirely on device. So maybe for your case, 264 gigabyte Mac Minis will cluster better than like a or maybe you won't have the access to like a Mac Studio with 128 gigabytes. But yeah. Um, Thunderbolt 5 is available for that. HTC saying, sorry, but I have to leave. It's actually nighttime here in India. Well, thank you very much for joining from India. I'll try to not make this stream way too long, but guys, you can take it all up from HTC and contribute to the live chat. You see, I love interacting with you guys. Thank you so much. Thunderbolt 5 also allows users to cluster multiple, and newly added Genlock support through USB-C enables precise synchronization between the display and camera, including the iPhone 17 Pro. There is macOS Golden Gate stuff, Siri AI stuff. I don't need to bring this up. And the Mac Mini in the environment, it is made with 50% recycled material overall, including 100% recycled aluminum in the enclosure. All of the electricity used to manufacture Mac Mini is sourced from renewable energy, like wind and solar, across the supply chain. And Apple has also invested in enough renewable energy around the world to match the electricity customers use to power Mac Mini. Like all Apple products, its paper packaging is 100% fiber-based and can be easily recycled at home. So these are commitments that Apple makes across many of its products. We don't need to dwell on it too much, but this is still very nice to see, at least to me. Now we can actually continue with M5 Ultra news. M5 Ultra, the ultimate powerhouse for pro workflows. It's Apple's most powerful chip ever. It's built for pros with demanding CPU and GPU performance tasks, such as complex 3D rendering, visual effects. Again, this is now not surprising. Apple advertises some of these tasks even on the base chips and especially the pro chips. So it's not surprising that they're going to talk about them specifically on the Ultra. But we're now getting into some more nerdy stuff here, like the Ultra Fusion Connect. So the Ultra Fusion in this case connects two dual die M5 Max chips, which are already separated CPU and GPU, to form the quad die architecture, a first for Apple Silicon. Ultra Fusion increases the inter-die bandwidth to over 4.4 terabytes per second. Previously, it was 2.5 terabytes per second, and the connection density by over 6x. That is probably because quad die connection is quite difficult to make scaling everything really logical. So yeah, I guess they needed a really wide connection for all of this and a dense connection. Together, these ultra low latency, high bandwidth interconnects allow 4 dies to behave as a single unified processor. M5 Ultra also features a large up to 36 core CPU consisting of 12 super and 24 performance cores. There are no E-cores that we've seen on the M6 here on the M5 Ultra, delivering up to 1.25 times higher single-threaded performance and up to 30% higher multi-threaded performance than M3 Ultra. These are actually pretty small uplifts, I will say, because when we look at the M3 chip, right? Or let's even say, let's actually look at the M3 Max, because we do have an M5 Max. So we have an M3 Max that comes out to 2818 in single core. And then the M5 comes out in 3637. So 3637, we're not even doing any rounding here, right? Versus 2818 is 29% faster. Well, no, I guess that's architecturally. Yeah, I guess Apple is just very fair. Apple is just more rounding down than Geekbench, I guess, in a way. So I'm actually going to take this back. This is in line with M3 to M5 generation. 1.3 times faster multi-threading. We can look at that. We can look at the M3 Max to the M5 Max as well here. What's the fastest M3 Max? 24,586. And the M5 Max is not on the list. Thank you, Geekbench. I'm just gonna paste 20. So that's 24,586. Then we're going to look at the M5 Max. That's, Jesus Christ. These numbers are really far apart. Let's take the highest as well. 34,451. That's 44% faster, mind you. Yeah, and I typed it incorrectly. So now this might be a discrepancy in how Geekbench tests these things, but Apple doesn't always err on the higher side. So if you're gonna accuse Apple of just misleadingly using Geekbench or some other benchmark because it benefits them, I present you the counter to this. Present you where Apple is actually underplaying the multi-threaded performance. Now, there could be a chance that the multi-threading suffers from some scaling issues because maybe even this Ultra Fusion isn't quite fast enough. And it does not have the same scaling from M3 Max to M5 Max on the M3 Ultra to M5 Ultra. But just saying. Android saying macOS prioritizes native DisplayPort and Thunderbolt signaling protocols over HDMI. The built-in HDMI port relies on internal protocol conversion chips to translate DisplayPort video streams into HDMI. I know. Well, do I know that exactly? I know that they obviously translate DisplayPort for the USB-C stuff. Well, because it's included in the standard for Thunderbolt. But then my question is, what is the issue with that approach? Are you saying you don't get the full bandwidth of HDMI 2.1, which would be like 48 gigabits per second? Do you not get the full feature set with everything from the latest display stream compression, the highest possible frame rates and stuff like that, highest possible resolutions? Because yes, for some things I do understand. Like I'm not sure, for example, if Apple does like 8K over its HDMI, even though technically HDMI 2.1 at a lower frame rate should be able to do 8K. But I'm just not sure if Apple wants it to in a way. Unprecedented AI and graphics, massive memory capacity, 80 GPU cores, again, 2 M5 Max basically, a neural accelerator in each core to offer up to 4.5 times the peak GPU compute for AI compared to M3 Ultra, and over 6 times more than the M1 Ultra. You can also see, by the way, how small the gap was between M1 Ultra and M3 Ultra for AI tasks, and how much more it has picked up with like M4 generation, M5 now, especially M5 with the neural accelerators. The GPU includes Apple's latest shader core with second generation dynamic caching. So latest shader core suggests that maybe the shader core is the same on the M6, or they wouldn't be calling it latest in regards to the M5 Ultra. So maybe, and that's something that Spielka says, that it's Apple considers them the same generation, Apple 10. As well as hardware accelerated mesh shading and third generation ray tracing. Third generation ray tracing suggests that Apple sees the M3 generation as the first generation of ray tracing, the M4 as the third generation, and as the second one, and the M5 as the third generation. So is the question, do they consider M6 the fourth generation ray tracing? They just don't call it that. Probably to not make this chip somehow look worse than the M6 in a way. Delivering up to 40% faster graphics performance than M3 Ultra. So at least here, the scaling does not seem to be hitting any bottlenecks. That roughly makes sense. Well, I might actually call some shenanigans on that too, because if M5 is already like 35% faster than the M4, and the M4 is like 20% faster than the M3, and memory bandwidth is up 50%, so that shouldn't be the bottleneck either. So are there some bottlenecks here potentially just with how large the chip is and how difficult it is to scale it across tasks and potentially some Ultra Fusion stuff? Who knows? M5 Ultra incorporates a more capable media engine, dedicated hardware-enabled H.264, HEVC, which is H.265, 4 ProRes encode and decode engine, because there are 2 per max chips, and hardware-accelerated AV1 decode. Still no AV1 encode, which leads me to believe that Apple is never going to do AV1 encode, and they're just going to smoothly transition to AV2 or H.266. All of this make it the ultimate solution for high-resolution video editing. M5, by the way, they have also not added AV1 encode to the M6. So at this point, I'm very much convinced they're not doing AV1 encode. M5 Ultra also includes a 32-core neural engine, which should be more like a dual 16 neural engine too, but it's not on one die. One of them is on one M5 Max die and the other on the other. Driving complex AI tasks and Apple Intelligence features securely on device with industry-leading energy efficiency. Wait, let me actually look something up. With the Mac Studio, that's the Mac Mini. How many neural engines does a Max chip get? 116 core. Okay, so you double the media engines on most part versus the M Pro, but then the Ultra obviously has everything double over the M5 Max. While the neural engine is still only 1. Okay, on the M5 Max. So I wasn't sure if that was somehow doubled over the Pro. Jesus. Additionally, M5 Ultra features a massive amount of high bandwidth unified memory, up to 512 gigabytes, 1.2 terabytes per second, which is up to 50% or just 50% faster than the M3 Ultra. This lets users store huge data sets entirely in local memory, increase tokens per second speed, and run huge LLMs with hundreds of billions of parameters entirely on device. This is why so many people were still buying M3 Ultras, because it's still relatively unique. But then Apple deleted its 512 gigabyte configuration. Then they deleted its 256 gigabyte configuration, so it stopped making sense. Unleashing power for developers. Apple's developer frameworks and tools, including Core MI, Core ML, Metal, and Xcode, tap directly into the advanced hardware of both chips. Developers can leverage the dual 16-core neural engine in M6 and the neural accelerators in the GPU with the 512 gigabytes unified memory pool. And the faster 1.2 terabytes per second of unified memory bandwidth in M5 Ultra. So basically, Apple is saying, without much development work, your stuff will work quite well here. Let's see what Apple promises exactly for the M5 Ultra here. They promise up to 4.3 times faster AI performance for local stuff and up to 512 gigabytes of unified memory and extensive connectivity, more advanced graphics. So we talked a lot about stuff like this. Now Apple seems to be going into more detail. 4.3 times faster AI performance, 2 times faster storage, we'll get to that a little bit later on, and up to 1.8 times faster graphics, up to 1.3 times faster CPU speed, we've already done the scaling math there, along with higher memory bandwidth. Mac Studio empowers creative developers, and so on. 18-core CPU on the M5 Max, 40-core GPU, up to 128 gigabytes of unified memory, double all that for the Ultra, 36-core GPU, 80-core GPU, and quadruple the max memory account. Though, again, 512 gigabytes is not coming as a configuration until sometime late October. Android. The issue is rare at 60 Hertz, but at 4K 120 Hertz, I get intermittent signal loss. That's a shame. What device are you using? Have you seen if that's like a common issue on like Reddit and stuff like that? Have you seen if like Apple might offer some fixing and stuff like that? I know here I won't be actually carrying much water for Apple in general. Like, I have really disliked how Apple has treated, first of all, their desktop chips and some of their more desktop adjacent things like their pro monitors and some of their even like their keyboard accessories for desktop not having like a background keyboard backlighting and things like that. So I'm not surprised that Apple would, in a world where they primarily expect people on Mac Mini and Mac Studio to use like Thunderbolt to connect to like Apple Studio displays, I'm not surprised that they might have some issues with HDMI. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 6 come to the Mac Studio for the first time. Thunderbolt 5, which was already on the M3 Ultra and M4 Max, round out its extensive connectivity so users can take advantage of blazing fast external storage, which is basically up to PCIe Gen 4x4, PCIe expansion chassis, and which this is Apple's pitch to replace the Mac Pro. Use a PCIe expansion chassis over Thunderbolt, and powerful hub solutions for the most intense workloads. Thunderbolt 5 also enables multiple Mac Studio systems to be clustered, bringing up to 3 times faster performance for distributed AI inference when compared to a single system. How many do you have to cluster for 3x? Is it 4? Testing was conducted by Apple in July. Okay, great. Great, Apple. That was really, really helpful. I love you too. But just Windows moves navigations. I'm not sure what you're trying to say, Android here. Together with Studio Display and Studio Display XDR, along with the power of macOS 27 and the next generation of Apple Intelligence, including Siri AI, it is the ultimate pro desktop. Start shipping September 22nd. You can pre-order starting today. Is that from Johnny Sarugi? Okay, guys, more Johnny Sarugi energy in the room. Give me a high five. Send me a heart in the live chat or something like that. Performance per watt. Mac Studio is the ultimate desktop for on-device AI and the world's most demanding pro workflows, relied on by users for its tremendous performance and extensive pro connectivity, all in a quiet, compact design that sits right on your desk. And today, we are pushing the boundaries even further. With the powerful M5 Max and the incredible capabilities of M5 Ultra, Mac Studio ushers in a new era of desktop computing, delivering huge performance gains for pro workflows and AI inference with frontier-class models. By integrating neural accelerators directly into the GPU and offering massive amounts of high-bandwidth unified memory, the new Mac Studio is our most powerful Mac ever. Come on, that wasn't too bad. Like, yeah. I don't understand too. The Mac Mini CPU temperature 10.5% for 60. Okay, well, I guess for you then, I would argue if your Mac Mini starts to like overheat or something, or at least gets hot for no clear reason, because these aren't like even temperatures that my MacBook gets, and that's a Max M1 Max 14-inch MacBook Pro. And I sometimes turn off the cooling here with like TG Fan Pro, right? So at that point, I would recommend maybe sending it to Apple. At least they can have a look at it, right? Or maybe you have like a repairman that you trust who won't screw it up or something. Let me check the quality of the stream for a second. Looks like it's all working. We have still a decent amount of people watching. Nice, nice. Okay, I have no messages. I can focus on you guys still for a bit. Good, good, good. And I hope you like the Johnny Sarugi impression. It's really with love. I have massive respect for that man. So, monumental step for AI. M5 Max features phenomenal on-device AI compute with up to 3.9 times faster AI performance than the prior generation. That's versus M4 Max. With M5 Ultra, Mac Studio achieves up to 4.3 times the peak AI compute of the M3 Ultra and a staggering 9.8 times more than the M1 Ultra. This, of course, makes sense because the M5 Ultra is competing here with the M3 generation. The M5 Max is here competing with the prior generation, which is M4. Again, 512 gigabytes of memory, 1.2 terabytes per second of memory bandwidth, which is 50% higher than before, where it was 800 gigabytes per second. AI inference scales to entirely new levels with multiple Mac Studio systems by using Thunderbolt 5 and RDMA, remote disk memory access. A cluster of 4 Mac Studio systems delivers up to a remarkable 3 times faster AI inference than a single system. Okay, so the scaling seems to fall off a little bit. I know that with like 2 systems, it gets to like 90%. So I guess at 4 systems, it becomes like 75%, which is still acceptable in my opinion. Mac Studio is also a powerful platform for rich ecosystem of tools AI researchers and developers rely on every day, utilizing the advanced frameworks. We've already talked about unified memory, CPU, and GPU. It's all being accessed by stuff like MLX, for example. Apple's open source machine learning framework. I hope they keep giving it more love. Apparently, there is some big project happening with MLX right now to make it really work well on both Apple Silicon and NVIDIA hardware, which should make it really easy to train a model on NVIDIA GPUs. And then make them run locally on Apple's GPUs and still use the same framework, MLX. So that would be a big development here. You're welcome, Android. Guys, we've been streaming now for almost 2 hours. Please leave a like if you haven't yet done so. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more in the future. Leave a message in the live chat or make it a super chat to support me directly. Consider becoming a channel member right here on YouTube. Every donation, every channel membership goes a long way to supporting this channel. And feel free to follow me on Discord or on Twitter. You know what? I'm actually gonna share the link to our Discord right in the chat. So if somebody is watching live and wants to stay here for longer, I hope you will be able to. I hope you'll consider joining. Basically, share invite. Sorry, invite members. Edit link to never expire. Save, copy link, and I'm pasting it here. John Sands saying you can't end the stream until Saruji joins. Imagine him joining right during one of my impressions. Or hey, against the super chat, I might do a lot of the rest of the stream in his voice, though that will be very tiring on my throat. That's what she said. Okay, MLX. So nice of Apple to definitely mention MLX here, their development tools and stuff like that. Serious speed. Again, we know already about the M5 Max from the MacBook Pro here. 18-core CPU, 6 super, 12 performance cores, 40-core GPU, 14 gigabytes per second of unified memory bandwidth. It also has better ray tracing, better mesh shading, better dynamic caching, all of that. That we don't need to go through too much of that. We've already seen it perform on the MacBook Pro. We already have benchmarks. I mean, Geekbench is right there, right? Mac Studio with M5 Max enabled up to 10.7x faster LLM processing in LM Studio when compared to the M1 Max, 3.9 times faster than M4 Max. So here's one of the cases where the gen-on-gen upgrade from M4 to M5 is not quite 4x, but it's still close enough. Up to 7.4 times faster text-to-image performance with M1 Max, 3.5 times faster than M4 Max. So you see not all AI scales at the exact same 4x because of the neural accelerators, up to 5.3 times faster Magic Mask performance in Blackmagic Design DaVinci Resolve when compared to Mac Studio with M1 Max, up to 3 times faster than M4 Max, up to 3.5 times faster base calling for DNA sequencing by Oxford Nanopore, and up to 1.9 times faster than M4 Max. So I'm not sure if this task has significant neural accelerator usage. Hamza, $900 for Mac Mini with 256 gigabyte SSD is diabolical. I agree. You should be buying the more expensive version because unironically that is way better value, and then you should be buying as little storage as you can, but make sure your system and your core apps fit nicely, and then use external storage as much as you can through, for example, like the 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port with a NAS system or some kind of Thunderbolt hub. Android, I am new with your channel. Which cases do you use local AI? For one, for my dermatology work, I cannot use cloud-based AI for obvious patient privacy reasons. So I use on my M1 Max with 32 gigabytes of RAM, I use LM Studio, and I now use the latest Quen. Wait, did I upgrade to 3.8 or am I stuck on 3.6? But roughly the newest one. I also use Gemini 4, Gemma 4, whatever the largest version is. But beyond that, I mostly use, of course, local AI with now partially Siri AI, at least on my Mac, right? Because on my iPhone and my iPad, because I live in Germany, in the European Union, I do not get access to Siri AI on my gatekeeper iPhone and iPad, unfortunately. Okay. M5 Ultra, we have talked to death now about the upgrades here. 4.3x the PKI compute, 1.8 times faster graphics than the previous generation, providing smoother real-time 3D rendering for VFX workflows. We have all the bandwidth and memory capacity mentionings. The Media Engine in M5 Ultra is more capable than ever, empowering pros to simultaneously play up to 33 streams of 8K ProRes 422 at 30 FPS. You probably are not going to just play back 33 streams of 8K, but you might be using like 8K, you might be using like 6K at 60 FPS and maybe like 5 to 10 streams, but you're not just playing them back, but you're also editing them, which obviously that could stress the system quite nicely. And here are some numbers that we get here on the Ultra. 3.3 times faster than M3 Ultra in Copycat ML training performance in Foundry Nuke, and a massive 15.4 times faster than M1 Ultra, 9.8 times faster than M1 Ultra in LM Studio with for LLM prompt processing, 4 times faster, so here we do get this nice even number again, versus M3 Ultra, 4.3 times faster versus M3 Ultra in text-to-image performance, and 8.2 times faster than M1 Ultra. You see there was like, yeah, an almost 2x between M1 and M3 Ultra, but the gains we're getting now, they are the true deal. Up to 4.7 times faster scene rendering performance in Maxon Redshift when compared to Mac Studio with M1 Ultra, and up to 1.7 times faster than M3 Ultra. And now here comes actually quite a nice surprise. Hamza, you're saying 512 gigabytes of unified memory will be available in late October. I already said that. I did not miss it. I've actually pointed it out multiple times, but thank you anyway. The new Mac Studio also features faster storage and a comprehensive array of Pro connectivity. Storage performance is up to twice as fast with a next-gen SSD architecture built on PCIe Gen 6. Now, I actually am not quite, because the M4 Max did not have yet PCIe Gen 5x4 performance. So when they say it's up to twice as fast, what are they comparing it to? Because if they're saying it's built on PCIe Gen 6, now PCIe Gen 6 is not necessarily an exact speed promise. We could be talking about PCIe Gen 6 by 4, which would be like 30 gigabytes per second, which would be extremely fast, would be twice as fast as what we get on the M5 Max and M5 Pro, at least on the MacBook Pro, right? But it could also be PCIe Gen 6 times 2, which would give it the same speed as the M5 Max and M5 Pro that we already have in the MacBook Pro. But they're also saying it's delivering industry-leading read and write speeds for rapid project loading, file transfers, and loading huge LLMs. What is 2? Results are compared to the previous generation Mac Studio systems with Apple M3 Ultra. Yeah, M3 Ultra did not have PCIe Gen 4x4 speeds, as far as I can tell. So this would, to me, suggest, or it did not have PCIe Gen 5x4 speed, sorry. So if it's 2 times faster than that, then it's just as fast as in the M5 Max is already on the MacBook Pro. If it's 2 times faster than that, then that could be an insane 30 gigabytes per second, which I doubted, because like with the current storage issues, is Apple really introducing like even faster, potentially supply limited storage to all this? I'm really not sure. Thunderbolt 5 delivers up to 120 gigabytes per second of bandwidth with 160 total, but 120 in one direction and 40 in the other, or 80 in both. Apple designed N1 brings Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 6, so that should mean that it has roughly the same peak speeds as the Wi-Fi 6E modem before, but it has connection to Wi-Fi 7, which should help it with connection strength and things like that. And Bluetooth 6 is now a new thing for the Mac Studio. With also synchronization for stuff like iPhone 17 Pro. It also supports up to 8 displays or up to 4 Studio Display XDR at full 5K resolution and 120 Hertz. So seems like it won't have the HDMI issues here, because this is definitely something you want to handle with Thunderbolt. And Apple keeps talking here about stuff like macOS Golden Gate and the environment, which we have largely already covered with the Mac Mini. One thing I actually want to really do here is go to, for one, let's start with the actual pricing. So the M6 chip Mac Mini, let's go fully base configuration, $899, $100 than the M4 version was before. This, to my surprise, Apple is actually giving you the fully unbinned M6 chip here. My speculation was that Apple was going to keep the $799 entry price, but they would actually start with a binned 10-core GPU, and then once they make you upgrade to 512 gigabytes, I was speculating that they would price the 512 gigabyte version at this is $300 upgrade, which included a $100 mandatory upgrade to the unbinned M6. And so I was very much correct on the price of the 512 gigabyte configuration. I'm still angry that the 256 even exists. Again, I think that even if we are looking at the high prices, it's still ridiculous to make people deal with 256 gigabytes. Even if you assume that some people are just going to use external drives, just price this $100 lower. The margins are absolutely there, even with the current storage and RAM pricing. Get rid of 256 gigabytes. For all I care, make that version binned down, and then for $100, bring us back to 512 and unbinned. So technically, you aren't even losing that much margin here. Yeah, the 256 is definitely comedy here, as is, by the way, 512 gigabytes on the M5 Pro, because yes, that one is, and then of course, now it's more expensive to upgrade from 512 gigabytes with the 1 terabyte version costing now $300 more rather than $200. So it's not like the upgrade cost got cheaper because the entry level price got more expensive. And yeah, to 8 terabytes, it's a mind-boggling $3,800. So, yikesy, yikesy. But basically, what I'm trying to say, M5 Pro prices here, $1699. Not great once you consider the RAM upgrades. Like, I really wish there was like a 36 gigabyte RAM configuration here. Man, just $600 here for 24 gigs of RAM. I know it's still $200 per 8 extra every 8 gigabytes. So the per gigabyte price is the same. But man, it just sucks so much in comparison, even to Apple's prior costs, which actually became cheaper per gigabyte once you reached higher end configurations. Like, I think that actually used to be a $200 upgrade, those 16 gigabytes. So it was half the cost per gigabyte. Storage, as I said, is expensive, but everything is expensive. Where would I configure this? I would probably go with something like this. $1,600, 1 terabyte. I wouldn't be using an NAS. 24 gigs of RAM, which would allow you to use a 17 gigabyte model like Qwen 3.8. How many parameters is that model? Is it 28 billion or something like that? And if you really needed to, 32 gigabytes, because technically in today's market, $200 per 8 gigabyte isn't even that crazy. Because, for example, if you look at a company that actually promises to give you great pricing, Framework Laptop Pro. And this is with slower LP Cam models. Let me switch to US pricing. Configure now. Let's do pre-build just for better comparison. Core Ultra Series 3. So let's do a higher end. Oh my God, that higher end chip. So this is slower, 6,800 megatransfers per second LP cam speed, mind you. And the highest one you get is 7,500. So this is slower than the memory on the M4, which was 8,500. This is slower than on the M5, which is 9,600. And this is now slower than the M6, which is 10,700. So that's not great. But if we are looking at just configuring the memory, wait, do they? That's the pre-configured, right? Let's look at the individual RAM. Just like, let's start with this chip, the cheapest one, and then with memory, right? So here. So this is because it doesn't come with any memory at first, right? You pay $239 to get 16 gigabytes. Mind you, again, this is for a product that has no memory. You could technically say, well, that's less money per gigabyte, but at this price, you already get close to the entry price of the MacBook Air, which comes with 16 gigabytes. And now you're $140 more expensive. But now if you get to 32 gigabytes, suddenly that price is almost $600 for 16 gigabytes, while Apple's price for 16 gigabytes is basically universally around $400. So, and mind you, again, Apple's memory here is faster, significantly faster, actually. So, yikes, yikes, yikes. And yeah, the storage is cheaper than Apple's. I'm not even gonna acknowledge that, but or I am gonna acknowledge that, but I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. In this regard, Apple definitely charges more. You can see 8 terabytes here cost $2,269, and this is over no storage. While for Apple, from 512 to 8 terabytes, it was like what, 3,600 or something like that. Android. On Windows exist apps for virtual RAM disks. It's the same exist on Mac OS. Virtual RAM disk. I'm a little bit confused. Virtual, because I know what. virtual RAM disk is a portion of your computer's random access memory that software treats as a normal hard drive or solid state drive. Why? I mean, most of what the Mac would do in most cases is the other way around. It would use part of your storage as your RAM, because sometimes if your RAM overfills. Now, I know Windows does the same, but Apple's implementation is quite good because they do have a storage and RAM controller directly onto the SoC. There's very little variance between what storage and RAM is used. They're like very hard-coded, pre-configured things. I'm not sure if you can force a Mac to do that, actually, because, yeah, I was a little bit confused. Virtual RAM disk on Mac. Because with 512 gigabytes, that would be quite... you can create a virtual RAM disk on Mac using the built-in terminal app or via third-party manager apps like Temp Disk. So, hey, I didn't even know that. So I guess we learned together here. Mac Studio. Oh yeah, I was looking at the prices of the Mac Mini. So this is the Mac Mini that I would kind of be configuring. I'm not sure how interested I would be in the M5 Pro, simply because at that point, like, I guess if my only focus was CPU performance, I could imagine pushing like to the 18-core CPU, 24-core GPU. But again, don't forget, the M6 here has like 2 neural engines. Dual 16-core neural engine. So this might, in many AI tasks, actually compete quite nicely. This one has a larger GPU. I believe on its base configuration, it should be 16 cores and here 20 cores. This is 12 cores, but these are newer cores, so don't forget that. So I guess with M5 Pro, my focus would be if you really wanted CPU power, because this one is too close to this. If you wanted more RAM, but also didn't want to go entirely crazy, that would be kind of like, I mean, that's so super expensive for a Mac Mini, but I guess. And then for the Mac Studio, it would mostly come down to, I guess for many people, I would still say M5 Max chip, just configure it to the highest end. And then it really depends on your task. Like, I think 64 gigabytes is good. Oh man, that price difference. I mean, I know this is just with 512 gigs of storage, but like, this is $1,000 more than the Mac Mini for literally double the GPU power, right? And I think I actually gave this more RAM too. Right, so in this regard, this is probably the Mac Studio I would be configuring. If I really needed M5 Max, M5 Ultra, I'm sorry, I would go, oh my God, $4,000. Oh my God, you don't even get 128 gigabytes. This hurts so much. But let's say my company was paying for it, but wouldn't allow me to go too crazy. I guess that would be it. 12,300. But my God, we really live in a nightmarish scenario. And yes, if you're truly like, I guess it will be $5,000 or so to get to 512, maybe even $6,000, because again, this already has. Oh yeah, this is just for. This is just 128 plus 32 gigabytes. That's for 160 gigabytes. Is $4,000. That's $400. Oh my God, yes, that might actually be. Oh God, it could be like $6,000 upgrade from here on, even if Apple gives you like a little bit of discount per gigabyte. This is crazy, crazy pants. And they also don't even give you any kind of like pricing per gigabyte benefits here, right? So from 1 terabytes to 2 terabytes, it's $500, right? That's 1 terabyte of storage costs $500. To 4 terabytes, that's 2 terabytes, so that's 2 times 1 terabyte, so 2 times $500, so that's $1,000, and then the same thing plus $2,000, and then plus $4,000. Previously, Apple used to offer you some discounts here. Now it's just absolutely effed. Jesus Christ. But before I actually slowly start wrapping up the stream, let's see what because Apple presents even more benchmarks usually, like here. So 2 times faster CPU than the M1 Max, 4.9 times faster GPU than the M1 Max, 10.7 times faster AI than the M1 Max, third generation ray tracing engine, support for up to 5 displays. Okay, so versus M4 Max, 10.7 divided by 2.8. I guess I'll have to 10.7 divided by 2.8. Why does my Spotlight search? Okay, that's a 3.x increase in LLM processing. AI here is almost 3 times faster. It's a little bit less. Video editing, this one is roughly 3x. Yeah, pretty much. Again, to me, only the M4 Max here is interesting. Almost 2 times faster. So in DNA sequencing, 3.5 times faster in AI image generation. Is it 1/3 faster to like 40% faster? If my math skills from high school haven't completely left me, 4.9 divided by 3.5. Man, Spotlight search is really slow with this. Oh, it's actually exactly 40%. Nice. Code compiling, this is like less than 20% faster. And gaming, 1.5 times faster with ray tracing in Cyberpunk. I wish they would give us a benchmark here without ray tracing too. And actually, when you look at 3D rendering, is there Blender here? It's Redshift. I think the Ultra gives us some Blender benchmarks. Okay, LLM prompt press. Okay, now it's versus M3 Ultra. So this is well over 3 times faster, 3.5 times. Well over 3 times faster again. Again, these are things where the neural accelerators now come into play, the increased memory bandwidth of 50%. Will we ever achieve a smooth window simulation with Parallels, or is Parallels itself creating the bottleneck? I have used Parallels with Windows 11 as a virtual machine on my Mac. Over time, I stopped needing it really. All the stuff I really need for work is at work. And it really stopped being worth it, just taking up like 200-300 gigabytes of my 1 terabyte SSD. I found it smooth enough. Like, it's not terrible, but like, I think what's the channel called? Oh, I forgot his name. He does like very good AI videos and large language model scaling stuff and things like that. Oh, how could I forget his name? Alec? What's his name? Alex or something? Alex AI. And the problem is that there exists basically every name. Yeah, but there is a channel that does go into sometimes how fast, for example, because he uses, oh my God, Visual Studio, right, on Windows, and he uses it in a virtual machine on Mac. Oh yeah, I remember. Alex Ziskind is his channel. And I think his last video actually comparing the M5 Max versus the Razer Blade 18. I think it actually has several benchmarks for the M5 Max running in a virtual machine in Parallels. So that's quite nice. Let me check my Discord. jump to present. Brus Differ joined the Discord, waving hi. Okay, so nobody has posted anything about stuff like FP8 acceleration. Lake Grimes, I'm going way off topic here. Does anyone prefer Apple numbers over Excel for personal finance stuff? Easy. I prefer Apple numbers in almost every way. I know it does not have all the like super scientific stuff that Excel even has, and at work I use Excel, but whenever, if ever I needed it for my personal stuff, I would use numbers. Especially now that my girlfriend also has a Mac. So if we ever like unify our finances, that would be one thing where I would put it into a numbers thing rather than an Excel sheet. Okay, DNA sequencing twice as fast as on the M3 Ultra, over 4 times faster. AI image generation. So again, this is scaling that makes sense with the neural accelerators per GPU core. Is this 75% fastish? Let's check my math skills live, guys, here. 4.7 divided by 2.8. Man, Spotlight Search is really slow. It's 67% faster. Okay, it's about 2/3 faster. Now I was close. Code compiling, faster project built-in Xcode, 1/3 faster. And gaming, 1.8 times faster in Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition with ray tracing. So again, if we compare the last one actually here, this is M4 Max versus M5 Max, that's 1.5x. So that scaling doesn't actually suggest that we have that much more RT here. I mean, it shouldn't, of course, architecturally versus the M5 Max, but I almost feel like it should be closer to 2x if we look at the scaling that we already got from M3 to M4, and now we saw M4 to M5, and now we have M3 to M5 as a total jump. But I guess some of that might just be scaling differences in different tasks. So, and yeah, like 3D rendering, this is Redshift. Do they not use Blender? Did Apple has Apple like, because I've seen one of my bros in Discord say that they do use Blender sometimes here. Place it cool and quiet. So one of you asked about better cooling, right? I'm not sure. Creating the studio. Is it maybe just that Apple is advertising the same cooling system that they had before? I mean, it does not seem like they're talking about like a vapor chamber or anything. Also supports PCIe expansion with an external chassis. Place it cool and quiet. Within the 7.7-inch square enclosure lies a thermal system that allows Mac Studio to fly through intensive tasks at lightning fast speeds. And even with all that power, it stays remarkably quiet. So you can process batch video renders or coding agent tasks without interrupting your focus. So it does not feel to me, I mean, this does look very similar to how it looked before. So I know the Ultra packs even more cooling than the Max version. To me, this looks the same, pretty much. Yeah, and now they're advertising displays, and they've also updated their keyboards with the latest layouts and stuff like that. Magic accessories are wireless, rechargeable, precise. They have Touch ID, and they have black keyboards without backlight, without backlighting. So, oh god. Even though it does look sexy, but it's really not worth any money without backlight, in my opinion. Oh, and they do give you some numbers here. Even like if you're coming from older hardware, but it's very little actually. Yeah. Now we do have one extra big piece of news still. Oh. Where does it expand? to Vietnam and countries in Europe that use the Type-C 2-pin Euro plug. Wait, Germany, right? Nice. I wish it was dual port. Then I would actually buy it pretty much instantly. But I stopped buying single port chargers. Okay, so Mac Studio with M5 Ultra chip with 512 gigabytes launching in October, late October. So that's one extra piece of news for you. This is something that Mark Gurman decided to randomly leak today. We're going to talk about it afterwards. So the keyboards, on the new keyboards, the tab caps, lock, shift, return, and delete key caps are labeled with glyphs rather than edge text. On the full-size models with a numeric keypad, the changes go further with the home, page up, page down, and clear and enter keys, also swapping their text labels for symbols. Apple has not said anything about changes to like their Bluetooth connectivity, their battery life, or anything like that. But the big news of the day, the one thing that I mentioned with a fire emoji in my title, the Apple polishing cloth is new. And $9 instead of 19, and it ships in one business day, and it looks a little bit different than it did before. And if you look at the compatibility list, it's the most compatible device that Apple has ever created, from Apple Watch first gen to Apple Watch Series 1 and up to Ultra 3, because never forget that Apple Watch first gen is technically Series 0. It works on Studio Display, Studio Display XDR, Studio Display, and Pro Display XDR. These are the only products I pretty much really need to know about, because they obviously, some of them might have nano texture screens. So I suspect that this polishing cloth is also designed to work with nano texture screens. Dedicated GDDR6X, GDDR7 GPUs offer nearly 1,000 gigabits per second, while the M5 Pro appears there are no dedicated GDDR6X, GDDR7. Oh, GDR, yeah, of course, yeah. GDDR7 especially, yeah, of course. But that's because GDDR7 is way bigger, way more, you have way less per bit, so to speak. So yeah, you can have it technically be faster in many ways. But now you're also dealing with a dedicated GPU, which means now you have to have a dedicated GPU with its own memory pool. And GDDR7 is way more expensive per gigabyte than LPDDR5X or LPDDR6. You now need to have a separate CPU. And its own memory pool, preferably like 32, 64 gigabytes of LPDDR5. LPDDR5 also currently more expensive than, not LPDDR, DDR5 also currently more expensive than LPDDR5X and LPDDR6. So yeah, there are, of course, benefits to dedicated components, but there is a reason why server infrastructure actually often starts to look a little bit more SoC-like the higher end it becomes. Dedicated stuff is great, especially in the personal computing space, if you want to really... Wait, does it not work on iPhone 4S and below? That's funny. But it works great if you want to have a system where you can quickly put in a GPU or take out and change to a new generation, things like that. If you want to expand your own system memory and stuff like that. But unfortunately, it does have its downsides. Like if you look at the pricing, for example, of NVIDIA RTX 9000. Wait, 9000? 6,000, right? That's the 96 gigabyte version, I believe. And I think it's already been price increased to like 16 or 17K. Yeah, so that one by itself with 96 gigabytes of memory, and I believe it has 1.8 terabytes per second of memory bandwidth. I mean, we can take, okay, now I know the name, RTX 6000 Pro specs, right? Workstation edition. So that's 96 gigabyte of GDDR7 memory specs. 1.8 terabytes per second of memory bandwidth. That's 600 watts for the GPU by itself. That's more power than the entire M5 Ultra Max Studio will use with its combined CPU and GPU and its I/O and everything else like that. And that's now 16K for just this deep GPU with 96 gigabytes. If you look in comparison to Apple here with the Mac Studio, Jesus, where did I open all this crap? Oh yeah. If we even ignore, let's say 96 gigabyte is just worthless here, right? Because, well, if you are going to use 96 gigabyte, you might as well use like the RTX 6000, right? But now with 256 gigabyte on the M5 Ultra, if you're playing it a little bit nicer with storage, mind you, of course, there is zero storage that you get from the RTX 6000 Pro, so you might as well go down to 1 terabyte. You're now in the $11,000 range. So, and you get over twice the memory. If you go down to 96 gigabyte, mind you, again, you still get a full computer with a CPU, its own power supply, its own I/O, which is largely superior, by the way, to most still Intel and AMD consumer CPUs and stuff like that. This is memory that's accessible to the CPU, so you don't have to buy DDR5 for your CPU in this case. And now you're under $7,000. And mind you, this is the fully enabled M5 Ultra. Now, if we go with the base version, that's also 96 gigabytes. So at least in raw capacity, we're looking at very, very different proposition. Now, that has to do with NVIDIA. NVIDIA charges more than they need to. But like, you can go with consumer parts like the RTX 5090, but then that one is super, consumes, I believe, even more power. I believe up to 700 watts or so. That one has 32 gigabytes. So now we are looking at M5 Max territory. Let's configure that one. Starting at 48 gigabytes is 50% more memory. So that's a completely different class of large language models that fit onto it. Let's even give it 64. And the RTX 5090 by itself is like a $5,000 to $6,000 card in the current market. It started as a card with an MSRP of $2,000. Then it very quickly stayed at $3,000. And now it seems to have very comfortably cracked 4K and never come underneath it for a while. And a lot of it is now 5K. And again, we are just talking, again, we can add more storage and we can add memory configurations that are in completely different ballpark. And now it costs as much as an RTX 5090 with 4 times more memory, actual storage, and actual class-leading CPU integrated in it, and DIO, macOS, all that jazz, right? So I fully understand the benefits of dedicated stuff, but I also want to point out there are plenty of benefits for pre-builds and SoC systems. Let's see. Apple just reveals 2 ways iPhone 18 Pro could get big upgrades. Oh, I get this is just going to be based on the M6. This is pure speculation. Apple releases new Magic Keyboards with one notable change. Yeah, many keys become glyphs. Let's see if there's anything about the Mac Mini that I've missed. These are the chips. M6 is up to 2 times faster storage than the M4. That makes sense. This is PCIe Gen 3 by 4. This is going to be very likely PCIe 4 by Gen 4 by 4. Memory upgrades. So offers memory bandwidth up to 170. That's versus 120. Oh, sure, true. That's versus 120 on the M4. The M5 was 150. The RAM maximum stays the same. Connectivity is on DN1, so that's Wi-Fi 7 versus 6E, and Bluetooth 5 versus 5.3. Yeah, and pricing obviously has gone up by $100 across the board, but you get that meaningful generational uplift, multi-generational uplift, in fact. I think that should be mostly it. Like, I don't see any other stories. Obviously, we did cover the polishing cloth. I think, is that? No, that's their own summary. So the last story that I do want to cover is that Mark Gurman randomly said that Apple remains on track to launch its first smart home device with a screen before the end of the year. Gurman reiterated that the device will use facial recognition to determine who is standing in front of it and serve up personalized content. That has been confirmed by code in macOS Tahoe 26.7. Apple is also readying a new Apple TV and an updated HomePod Mini. Unfortunately, no word about an actual big HomePod, which is the product I'm most interested in. Pricing is expected to land somewhere around $350. It depends. I mean, there is going to be like a wall-mounted version and one that just stands there. And one with like a swiveling arm. So I'm not sure. I mean, $350 would suggest that it's quite worth a just audio task, because the regular big HomePod is $300, and that's not with like an A18 chip and 8 gigs of RAM, not with a screen, not with like an N1 Wi-Fi chip. So I would have more pegged it at like $500, especially if it was also simultaneously a replacement for the big HomePod. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. So I don't even think this is that big of new news. It's just confirming what we pretty much already knew, at least in my opinion. Maybe Mark Gurman, because of his predictions about new Mac Mini, they turned out to be correct. And he did say that Apple tested both versions with an M5 and an M6 chip. Now we do have the M6 chip technically as part of Apple's lineup already. So that's quite cool. But yeah. We now also know what to expect, basically performance-wise, from the 14-inch MacBook Pro without the redesign. And now we have also a precedent for the M6 and like M5 Pro, M5 Max chips existing in the same lineup. So the same thing is going to happen with the redesigned tandem OLED MacBook Pro. The premium models with that actual redesign in tandem OLED, those are going to be M5 Pro and M5 Max still. And the base version, that's still going to be mini LED and old design, that one is actually going to be M6 before it gets updated to M7 and the new design, and before M7 Pro and M7 Max versions come for the redesign as well, or at the end of next year, or at least the second half. My voice is pretty spent, guys. Please, if you haven't yet left a like, please do so. I do think we have covered pretty much everything, and I do not want to react to any YouTube videos right now. As I said, I'm still mostly on a hiatus up until like the middle of October or so, because my work life is very busy and my personal life is busier than usual. But I will try to react to really big news like today, and of course when Apple actually unveils the iPhone 18 Pro and iPhone Ultra, or maybe before that when Apple unveils that the event is actually happening like early September. But we'll pass that bridge once we get there. Thank you guys so much. This was really fun. We had a really lively live chat. Before you go, again, likes, comments, share the video out with anybody else who you think might enjoy it. And when you comment, I love you commenting in the live chat. Just leave a hi, leave a thumbs up in the regular comment section. It helps a lot. It's the thing that's most missing still for this channel to be more relevant in the algorithm. So that would be great. And If you want to support me directly, leave a super chat or super sticker while I'm live, or super thanks afterwards. You can also become a channel member right here on YouTube. Shout out to all our MarkCheck Pro Max members, Steve, Angelica, Max Maximus, and Jonathan. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter or join my Discord. The links for those are in the description of this channel. I hope you learned something today. I definitely did. That was quite a lot to take in. And that's after a quite busy work day and then having to do some first aid on the street and things like that. So I'm quite spent. I have to eat a little bit, but I had a lot of fun and I hope to see you guys soon. But for now, this is MarkTech tuning out.